Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am asking questions, and that's a really good thing. You know, there was a phrase back in the 1960s that went something like this: question everything. Question everything. And I think that's a good thing to do. No matter what you have been taught, it's good to question everything. Ask the why. Why do we believe what we believe? Why are we here? Why did we get to this place? This is how you learn. You learn by asking questions. It's always good to be inquisitive all of your life. From the time, children are naturally inquisitive. Sometimes they can maybe get under your skin because they're always asking questions, but that's a good thing. We should never tamp that down. We should always be asking questions. This is how we learn. And sometimes some of the questions that need to be asked are questions we're not supposed to ask, but those are the very ones we need to ask. Sometimes you got to be a little bold in asking questions, but again, this is how we learn. We've had the habit of, many of us have had the habit, I think particularly in the United States, of simply accepting a narrative that has been publicized by the corporate and government-owned media. And now all of this, of course, is being exposed, as we all see. Not to get sidetracked, but as I've noted on this show before, it's like 90% of the media in America and probably in the West is owned by 6 companies. And now what we're finding out with the exposure of the USAID criminal scandal is that the American government has been controlling the narrative with regard to all manner of things, certainly with regard to the Russia-Ukraine war. And we as the American people have basically been fed a bill of goods by the American government, who capitalized on the anti-Russia sentiment that has existed largely in the United States since the Cold War. And our politicians, by and large, for the most part, are fine with the American people still seeing Russia as the enemy. It made it easy for them to create this false narrative with regard to this unfortunate war. Now, there's a lot of reasons, or really, I don't know about a lot, but there's at least 2 reasons why a lot of Americans have such hatred or such loathing or disdain or disrespect or distrust toward the largely Christian nation of Russia, which many still equate with the old Soviet Union. For one thing, because of the Cold War, when the Soviet Union was a natural enemy of the United States during their communist days. And that's legitimate. I was raised under the threat of nuclear war. Many of you were as well. But theology has a large role to play in that as well, because a lot of Americans are either evangelicals or they get their eschatology or their worldview from evangelicals. Their worldview, even if they're not a Christian or an evangelical Christian, has been largely shaped by this sort of worldview, which sees Russia as being the big bear, the great Satan that's going to one day come against Israel and make war and bring about the Antichrist and all this utter nonsense which was devised in the late 1800s. Again, I don't want to get sidetracked onto that. That's another show, which, by the way, is upcoming, and I've got some news to declare to you about that from the perspective of an evangelical and how wrong that worldview is. And it's some interesting stuff, so stay tuned for that. But I'm talking right now about asking questions. I've been asking questions for a long time. And I've got a question to ask today, and that question is simply this: with special regard to the attack of October 7 a year ago, a little over a year ago in Israel. Let's ask some questions about that, shall we? Now, I'm not saying I have answers, but Lord knows I've got a belly full of questions. We were told that the state of Israel was attacked on October 7th by Hamas. Hamas, of course, being located largely in Gaza, among the Palestinian people. That's what we've been told. Here's the question I have. Were we told the truth? Are we to just simply accept the narrative that Israel was attacked by Hamas on October 7th of 2023? That's what we've been told, and I don't hear a whole lot of Americans arguing with that narrative. But maybe there's enough precedent based on a mountain of lies we have been told heretofore to question this narrative as well. Now, that's what we're told. Israel was attacked by Hamas. To those of you who believe that are watching me right now, you're perfectly entitled to your belief and your opinion. But ask yourself this question: why do you believe that? What is your source for that information? Now, we have established, I believe, fairly firmly that we're lied to constantly by our government and by the Western corporate-owned media. But this is the narrative we were given by those entities. The media told us, the Western corporate-owned media told us that Israel was attacked by Hamas on October 7th. The Biden government, the Biden regime told us that Israel had been attacked by Hamas on October 7th. But were they really? Now look, I have no credentials to give you folks. I am not a foreign policy expert. I'm not a former employee of the State Department. I've never been in the CIA. Even if I had, I wouldn't admit it, but I haven't. These are my credentials. I'm just a regular, hard-working, Southern American man living in the sticks in Alabama. Those are my credentials. I'm just a tax-paying citizen who has refused to be gullible. That's who I am. I'm going to question everything, and you should too. I have been told that Israel was attacked by Hamas on October 7th. I was told this by the media. I was told this by the government. I was told this by Fox News, CNN, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, everybody told us that Israel was attacked by Hamas on October the 7th. Okay, maybe they were. But is it a crime if I ask the question, were they really? Is it a bad thing if we simply question such narratives? Is there a possibility, ladies and gentlemen, that the Israeli attack of October 7th was a false flag staged by someone else? I don't know the answer to that. I readily admit it. Some of you that are watching right now may have more information than I have. Now, I've done a lot of scouring of the internet. I've done a lot of reading. I've read a lot of articles that lay down the possibility that this was indeed the case, and these articles are rife with evidence of this belief, this theory that this was a staged false flag event. It's not unprecedented, by the way. Let's not be outraged that I would ask the question or even insinuate that this has the possibility or the markings or the stench of a false flag event. These are not unprecedented, folks. It's happened before, and I'm going to give you some examples in a moment. Now, I'm not enamored with Israel, as you know. I'm certainly not enamored with Benjamin Netanyahu. I consider him a genocidal maniac who has just wiped out almost an entire nation of people in Gaza, people who absolutely had nothing to do with what happened to Israel on October the 7th. Is it possible that somebody had some designs for that land, that very valuable land on the sea? I don't want to get Trump involved with this because that's another angle I don't want to cover today, but I have talked about that in some detail in the past where Trump is talking about taking over Gaza. That's not America first, but I'll save those comments for another video. I'm simply asking the question because I dare to question the narrative. I want to be a rebel with regard to the narratives we're just supposed to swallow as if they're all fact. Well, I heard it on the news, therefore it might be a fact. You realize, of course, that within a day or two of the Kennedy assassination, we were told that John Kennedy was assassinated by a lone gunman by the name of Lee Harvey Oswald, and pretty much everybody just said, okay, that's what happened. And as we all now know, of course, 60-something years later, it's not at all what happened. I mean, does anybody still believe that actually? And do we have to wait 60 years before we finally realize the truth of what happened in a given scenario? Or would it behoove us, ladies and gentlemen, to just go ahead and start questioning everything we hear? Because we're at a point in the United States right now where we can almost believe nothing we hear from the media anymore, and we need to question everything, every narrative. And folks, this transcends administrations. I don't care if it's Biden, I don't care if it's Trump, I don't care if it's Obama, Clinton, Bush, any of them. Question everything. Don't just accept, don't even accept what I'm saying. Question everything and do your legwork, do your homework, do some research so that you can arrive at the truth. You know, we have a gold mine on our cell phones right in the palm of our hand now where we can do our own digging. When you dig for the truth, you might find some things that make you uncomfortable. You might find out that you have to adjust your worldview because there's some things you've discovered to be true that are going to shake to the core the things that you have heretofore thought to be true that maybe aren't. I've been through that, man. I've believed things that I found out later were simply not true. And I'll tell you what, it's not pleasant. It's a little scary, but you've got to be brave enough to seek and accept the truth. Folks, the truth is everything. And truth cannot be something that is subject to your feelings. We can't go on feelings. We have to go on facts and facts alone. The truth is everything. The truth may rock your world and shake you to the core, but the truth is everything. If we don't have the truth, we don't have anything. That's just the way it is. Now, before I continue with this, I want to go back in history and show you examples of where the American people were duped. And I have several. I'm not going to take a lot of time with each one, but I have several. We were duped into going to World War I. Did you know that? World War I was a European war. We had no business getting into it. And you may say, well, wait, we might have been threatened by the powers that be in World War I. That were allied against us then. Well, we weren't. It was a European war, and it could have been contained to Europe, but we got involved in that war. Thankfully, it came out okay for us for the most part. Of course, we had casualties, and that's never okay, but it could have been a lot worse. We got duped into World War II. Is there anybody who doesn't understand that at this point? Is there anybody who does not understand that Roosevelt prodded Japan into the Pearl Harbor attack? That's just a matter of historical record by this point. Roosevelt wanted to be in World War II, which had largely broken out in Europe, and Roosevelt wanted to be in that war, and he needed a vehicle, a justification for entering into the war. This war, of course, was Germany, it was Great Britain, it was Russia, it was a Eurasian war. And it should have stayed that way, because I'm going to tell you, without U.S. involvement, that war would have ended regardless, even if we weren't in there. And if you don't believe that, you just don't understand history. By the way, people talk about all the casualties from Germany. Russia's losses dwarfed those of Germany. But Roosevelt goaded Japan into attacking Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, which gained us entry into the Second World War. But we never needed to go into the Second World War, and we lost a lot of good American men in that war unnecessarily. It's a shame. We were goaded into the Korean War. Didn't need to get involved in that either. We were certainly goaded or lied into the Vietnam War. Does anybody doubt that? You can believe, whether you want to or not, that John Kennedy is no longer with us because he was trying to get us disentangled from the looming Vietnam War. John Kennedy, of course, had vowed to blow the CIA into 1,000,000 pieces, I believe is what, 1,000 pieces or 1,000,000 pieces. You know, the CIA had only been around for a few years. It was created by Harry Truman. Thanks a lot, Harry. The buck stops with you. Kennedy wanted to end the CIA. He wanted to end our involvement in Southeast Asia. And I maintain that's what got him killed, because as soon as he was assassinated, even before his funeral could be held, Johnson was signing the orders getting us involved in the Vietnam War. What an absolute catastrophe that was, where we lost 50,000 men, and for what? If you were going to fight the war, fight a war to win it, but we just dawdled around from the early 60s until we finally got our people home. That war was not necessary. We did not need to be involved in that war, but as we know, a lot of people profited from that war, as is always the case. Does anyone actually believe the narrative surrounding 9/11? Does anyone actually believe we needed to go into Iraq? Is there anybody left who believes what George Bush told us? And if you are still there, if you still believe that, you need your head examined, my friend. Do you believe the narrative we were told about what happened on 9/11? This was the result of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. But isn't it interesting, as soon as 9/11 happened, the bin Laden family was squirreled out of the United States on a private jet? What's up with that? And we were told that Saddam Hussein had WMD, weapons of mass destruction, and we had to go over there and fight them on their homeland so they couldn't come again over here and do this to us again. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with the towers coming down. Nothing. We were lied to by the Bush-Cheney administration. And again, a lot of people got really wealthy from the subsequent Iraqi war, which followed after 9/11, thanks to George W. Bush, this warmongering liar, along with Dick Cheney, his accomplice. Who was responsible for 9/11? Well, I've got some ideas about that. I don't know if I want to share with you who I believe was really responsible for 9/11, but I will tell you it ain't what we were told. That's for damn sure. Not by the media, not by the government. That was a lie. And we all should, by this point, know that. Is it possible that the attacks on 9/11 were also a false flag, designed to get us to go to war with the enemies of one of our allies, perhaps? Folks, I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying this is exactly what happened on 9/11, but I am asking questions. And if every American would simply have the guts to ask the questions, we might have a better chance of getting to the truth. Was 9/11 a false flag? Was 9/11 put upon us in order to get us to go into war? Who perpetrated 9/11? Should we ask such questions? So who stood to profit from 9/11? Who stood to gain from America being attacked on 9/11? Who made out from that? Those are the questions we should be asking. And who stood to profit from an alleged attack of Hamas on Israel on October the 7th? Gaza? You think Gaza did it? Why do you think Gaza would do that? Did it turn out very well for Gaza, that October the 7th attack? And do you think that maybe they're not that stupid? Who stood to profit from the October 7th attacks? Who stood to profit from the 9/11 attacks? Are things really as they appear? And do you have the guts to ask questions? Do I have all the answers? No, I sure don't. But folks, there are some usual suspects in this old world that we need to take a big look at, in my opinion. And I just hope that Donald Trump can hear some voices from outside the neocons that are still lingering around his inner circle so that he can get to the truth. We need to pray for him. All right, let me shift gears. I want to get over to the Department of Government Efficiency, but let me insert this real quick before I continue. Did you realize that Google, the alphabet company, has dumped the Gay Pride Month from their calendar? No more Gay Pride Month on Google. Bravo, Google. Now let's get rid of Black History Month, which we're in right now. I don't want any months. You realize we had a holiday for George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and then they merged them into one day, and now I don't think they even exist. I think it's been replaced by MLK. I don't want a Black History Month. I don't want a Gay Pride Month. I don't want a White Boy Month. I just want 12 months of the year. Is that too much to ask? That just has to do with the whole politically correct nonsense that was foisted on us long ago. And thankfully, I'm happy to report that I believe the tide is turning on this whole DEI woke mindset, and maybe we can get back to some sense of normalcy in our lives. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the Department of Government Efficiency and the subsequent howling of Democrats. As you know, Democrats are just pitching fits. They're like the 4-year-old little boys in the grocery market who are screaming and having a hissy fit on the floor because their mama won't buy them Fruit Loops, as I said in another video. That's what they're acting like right now. You see it in Congress. They are outraged because Donald Trump is not spending money the way that they think he ought to be spending money. Well, this money's already allocated. You can't do that. You've got to spend this money. All these Democrats, far and wide, Maxine Waters, I can't get into names because there's so many of them, in the House and in the Senate, they're just howling that Donald Trump is not spending the money that's been allocated for certain things, and that he has the gall, the unmitigated gall, the audacity, the nerve to go to send Elon Musk, who nobody elected as president, to go and look for waste and fraud and abuse and theft in all of these government agencies. The nerve that he would find some waste in one of these agencies. We can't have that. That's not business as usual. And we're going so far as to find an activist judge somewhere who's telling Trump, oh, no, you're not going to do this. By God, I'm a federal judge, and I'm telling you what to do. Now, I've got some advice for Donald Trump with regard to these activist judges. And my advice to Donald Trump is simply this. Mr. President, ignore them. Ignore them. You are the chief executive of the United States of America, and you've got some activist judge from New York or Washington or San Francisco or somewhere, because the enemies of Donald Trump and the Democratic Party go judge shopping until they find... You notice they didn't go looking for a judge in Florida or Texas. They go and find some left-wing, Obama-appointed, radical activist judge to order Donald Trump to stop doing what he's doing. Hey, Don, ignore him. You ever say boo to a bureaucrat? Just say boo to them. Nope, not going to do it. That's what I would say. The judge says, you stop doing this. I'm just going to say, no, I don't think so. Well, you've got to. I'm a judge and I told you to stop. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to stop, so what are you going to do about it? Because, folks, that's where we are right now. That is where we are right now. Donald Trump is well within his purview to do exactly what he is doing. Let's talk about this for just a moment. The Department of Government Efficiency is legal. It was created by Donald Trump via executive order, and then he made Elon Musk a government official. This is not without precedent. This has been done for decades, as far back as you can remember, by American presidents. Trump created the DOGE by executive order, and it is supposed to end by executive order on July the 4th of 2026, about 2 years or so from now. Need I remind you that the USAID, which is the original source of all the outrage, this is where, Elon looked under the covers of the DOGE. He's going to other agencies, of course. He's going to the Pentagon. He's going to all these other agencies, but he lifted the lid on the DOGE and said, wow, look what I found. And that's when the howling started. You see a lot of howling Democrats. It makes you wonder, why are you howling? Are you on the gravy train? You got something to hide? You don't see a whole lot of Republicans saying anything, which makes me also scratch my chin and say, hey, wait a minute, you been on the action too? But they're in a bind, there's just not so much they can say. It's their president that's doing this, and good on him. But need I remind you that JFK created the USAID in 1961, the year of my birth, and he did so by executive order. So it was created, the DOGE was created ostensibly to find waste and fraud. This is not unusual. You can create such a thing by executive order. You can also end it by executive order. And Trump is basically having Musk to fold the USAID, which has largely been shut down, into the State Department, where it will be under the auspices of Marco Rubio. Now, there was money already allocated for certain pet projects in the USAID, and Democrats, again, they're howling about this. But how many times did we see Biden just send billion here, billion there, billion here, billion there to Ukraine? And that was apparently okay. Are you aware that Donald Trump had allocated a certain amount of funds for the construction of the wall on the southern border? This money had been set aside and allocated. And are you aware that as soon as Biden assumed office, he canceled all that? He just canceled it. That was money that had been allocated by Congress for the construction of a border wall, but as soon as Biden came into office, he said, no, we're not doing that. Well, why aren't we doing this? Money's already allocated. You can't do that. Well, we need to do environmental studies, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. But the money had already been allocated and approved by Congress, and Biden killed it. Where was the Democratic outrage over that? Double standard much? So this is where we are, folks. Donald Trump was well within his legal right to establish the DOGE. He certainly has, in my opinion, the moral right and imperative to look for waste and fraud. I'm telling you, Democrats have nothing to stand on whatsoever. Folks, this party is in such disarray. They have no leadership. They have no platform. They have no audience. They have no constituency to speak of. Their future is bleak. When you're appointing people like David Hogg as the vice chairman of the DNC, are you freaking kidding me right now? They are wandering in the desert, and good for that. Good riddance to you people. You've got no leadership. James Carville is crying in New Orleans right now and about to jump off the bridge into Lake Pontchartrain, I do believe, because he can't believe what's happened to his party. They are absolutely decimated. They have no moral authority to lead. They have no leaders. I mean, who's leading the Democratic Party right now? Schumer? Are you kidding me? Pelosi? Dick Durbin? Where are their leaders? Newsom? Kamala? Is this the best you can do? Pritzker of Illinois? Tim Walz of Minnesota? Jennifer Granholm? Shapiro of Pennsylvania? Where are your leaders? Where are the voices? You've got nothing. You are politically bankrupt. You're bankrupt on the issues. You've got nothing. You've got no platform. You've got nothing to run on. You got 2 years until the midterms, and typically the incumbent party gets mopped. The opposition party mops the floor with the incumbent in the midterms, but I don't think that's going to happen this time. And 4 years from now, hey, Democrats, you better get your shit together, because it ain't looking good for you right now. I'm telling you, the Republicans are running with a golden football. They better not fumble it. Of course, if there's anybody that could, it would be them, but let's hope and pray they don't. What the Republicans need to do is go ahead and excise the rhinos out of the party to be replaced with MAGA Republicans who will align themselves with Donald Trump, because Trump is a winner. Donald Trump is a winner. I do not agree with Donald Trump on a few things, a lot of things probably, but the man is a winner. He is a master politician who wasn't a politician. He's a master negotiator, a master deal maker. He's looking for waste and fraud, and that alone makes him worth the price of admission. I don't agree with him on some of his recent foreign policy decrees, but folks, his wins are huge. What he's doing with Musk here to combat waste and abuse and fraud is huge. It is huge. And I'm telling you, the American people are loving at least this part of it for sure. The Democrats have been boxed into a corner. What can they say? What can they say? They can flail around and holler and scream and pitch a fit all they want to, but the American people understand, by and large, looking for waste and fraud is a good thing. They are fighting a losing battle. What they need is to come up with their own sensible populist candidate. What the Republicans need to do is go ahead and get the McConnells and the Grahams and the Murkowskis and the Collinses and the Cornyn's and people like this. They need to bleed them out of the GOP, and they need to get in some more people like Rand Paul and Mike Lee, maybe Josh Hawley. More people like this, more MAGA-type Republicans into the party that are practical, pragmatic, are all about doing what's right for the American people and not getting us mired in these perpetual wars that kill Americans and make a few select elite Americans all the more richer. So there you have it. Hey, listen, comment down below. Let me know how you feel about what I talked about today. I'm asking questions. I'd like to hear some of your questions. Please do me a favor, folks. Like this video down below. If you have not yet subscribed to the Triple T channel, I invite you to do so. That is fantastic if you'll do that. You can buy me a coffee. It's your way of saying thanks. All of the relevant links are down below. I would love to hear from you, and thank all of you. A lot of you have written me and all that, and I really do appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I really appreciate it. This is Trailer Trash Tim, and I'll see you soon.